It's me, Sean Capri. I'm glad you're here because you're listening to the most horsepower podcasts on the internet. It's the Xbox Drive. I'm on a Skype call with my friend Ryan Turford. He's the man on the moose, and on our journey today, Call of Duty for everybody. You get Call of Duty, and you get Call of Duty, and you get Call of Duty. So jump on into the Xbox Drive.
Greater than X.
Hello, Sean Capri.
Ryan, look at us. You think we've traded in our McDonald's sponsorship for our Blue Jays sponsorship. Look at us, man. We're all kitted out and everything, man.
I know we gotta represent, Toronto, the greatest,
the sport that neither of us watch.
It's fine, Sean. We play MLB The Show. That counts.
Fake fans. Yeah. Game. This is a shout out to Game Pass, man.
Exactly.
How you doing?
Well, the weather outside is actually really. I'm just kidding.
Damn it, Ryan.
I'm doing well. I mean, I'm all hyped out, Sean. We just watched the Nintendo Direct, and I came away pretty excited about that.
Me too.
So there you go.
Yeah.
I also deflected into that a little bit. But Sean, how are you?
I've had a rough day. I'm not going to lie. Nintendo Direct was a wonderful escape. This is, it was well timed. I get to chat with you about all the things we've got to talk about. And this is why we do what we do, man. A little escape from the everyday. And I couldn't be happier to be here, my friend.
Absolutely. So before we start the show, of course, let's clean the garage a little bit. So folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of awesome ways to do that. Number one, you can subscribe to us on your podcast feed of choice. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. We're all the places that you find podcasts. So hit us up there. Also, leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that helps the show go a long way. Also, if you want to see our beautiful faces every week, heading over to YouTube, youtube.com/YumiCapri. And of course, like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, ding, 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 ring that bell, because it helps the channel as well. And last but not least, if you want to support us over on Patreon, patreon.com/YumiCapri is how you do that. You get early access to this show, as well as some exclusive perks over there as well. All right, without further ado, Sean, let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in. It is time for the playlist. And Sean, I can see played a lot of games this week, so tell me about that.
Halo, back to you, Ryan.
All right, I played Taiko Tatsujin, the Drum Master. Of course, I talked about it when it came to Game Pass, how I was actually pretty excited about this game because I love the arcade version of this game. I actually played it when I was in Japan because it's a drumming game where you get to play a whole bunch of anime music and, J-pop music and even some like American pop music as well as a lot of like game music as well, like the Tales of Arise battle theme. You can play that in there. Some music from Scarlet Nexus, all kinds of cool stuff. So that's kind of been my obsession over the last week. It's been that and been a lot of work at my day job, but that's been getting me through that, especially because it's like leads to like short play sessions, and I've been having a ball playing this game. I love music games, and I used to play the drums in real life, so I mean this is kind of the perfect game for me. The only downside to this version is we do not have a peripheral on Xbox, like a drum peripheral, so the controls are kind of wonky as far as how they map it on the D-pad and the face buttons, but it's enough to get through it and still have a good time with it anyways. But I really wish we had the drum peripheral.
With the power of Kinect, your body is the controller.
Yes, but it's not supported on the Xbox Series X.
Bring back Kinect.
It's not even in this version of the game.
Hashtag bring back Kinect. I know we have more important things to talk about today, but the title of this week's episode, obviously, bring back Kinect.
Hashtag bring back.
As a reference
I'm seriously going to call it that, right, Sean?
I hope not. I really.
Anyways.
Get the SEO juice, man. We got that Call of Duty sweetness. Quick shout out, two shout outs. I was on a podcast with Steve Evgari and Court Lalonde and Matt Midwood over at Xbox A. People should go check that out for the very, very just absolutely sensational topic about NFTs in video games, acquisitions and mergers. Like, it was like, I fell asleep afterwards. It was a very intellectual chat with some very good looking and handsome Canadian men. Got to hang out with those guys. And speaking of good looking and handsome Canadian men, Matt Sawinski and we recorded our God of War review, spoiler-free plus spoiler-filled review of God of War on PC over on the PlayStation Drive. People should go check that out, or youtube.com/YumiCapri, because it's one of the best games I've ever played in my entire damn life, Ryan Turford.
And y'all did it as a live stream too, so it's up there as well. I even marked, because there's spoiler talk in it, so I even marked like where the spoiler talk happens, both on audio feeds and the video version. So don't worry about spoilers or anything like that if you want to check that one out as well.
And sorry to Dano, who kind of walked in on the live stream and realized that he was in the spoiler section.
You know, Dano knew what he was doing.
Sorry about Dano. Sorry about that.
Anyways, let's slam the brakes on this conversation. It is time for some breaking news. And we got a lot of news stories this week. So you alluded to the first one. I have breaking news
before you. Patreon.com/YuMikaPuri, Court Lalonde, and Cypher Primus. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, guys, for joining the crew. More than 70 people. The picture of Ryan Turford riding a moose in Canada, probably in the style of South Park. Probably going to have a Royal Canadian Moose Police reference in there. You guys can all look forward to that. It's coming along nicely, Ryan.
It's happening. I mean, we've already seen concepts of it, Sean.
We're gonna make it into a Canadian stamp. You can send postage mail with it.
Excellent. I'm glad we're so many great ideas, Sean.
I just about broke them. Got you.
Anyways, first news story was something that I was not expecting. First of all, before today, there was I had one news story for us to talk about basically, but a lot of stuff happened today. And of course, one of the biggest things, the questions we had anyways, over the last month is what's going to happen with Call of Duty and the other Activision Blizzard games going forward. And we've got an answer today over on Microsoft.com. They had a blog post put up by Microsoft president Brad Smith, who actually wrote about basically a bunch of adaptations that Microsoft is doing ahead of the acquisition of Activision Blizzard and kind of their philosophy of where they want the Microsoft store to go from here, and how they kind of want it to be on everything down the road is kind of what he talked about in the article. But he had this to say specifically about the Activision Blizzard kerfuffle, especially with Call of Duty. So I'm going to basically read it verbatim anyways from the article. Quote, Microsoft will continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles available on PlayStation through the term of existing agreements with Activision, and we have committed to Sony that we will also make them available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreement and into the future so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy the games that they love. We are also interested in taking similar steps to support Nintendo's successful platform. We believe that this is the right thing to do for both the industry, gamers, and for our business. So long story short, we basically have our answer now as to what's happening with both Call of Duty as well as pretty much any of the Activision Blizzard games going forward. So this actually genuinely surprised me. I know we've talked about on the show many times about kind of the future of Call of Duty, how I think we both kind of had the consensus thought that it would be exclusive eventually. But Sean, what do you think about this news, that the confirmation essentially from the Microsoft president that that's not going to be the case?
I really do like it. It's nice to have it ahead of time. I don't think anybody was expecting this sort of clarity this early. I feel like the last time you and I chatted about it, it was can they even say anything? Because they still have a lot of regulatory stuff to get through. Can they speak definitively to this? So very, very interesting from that perspective. The other thing that jumps out to so PlayStation fans can maybe calm down a little bit, and maybe that's the other side of this too, is that not every deal is the same, that there's a multi-goal, there's multiple objectives with all of these different moves, which I think just continues to make this even more fascinating than it already was. And then the thing that jumped out to me, I don't know about you, but Nintendo was the thing that jumped out to me. Mm-hmm. And, of course we just chatted about the Nintendo Direct that just happened. And, Switch is in a really weird spot because in some cases it seems like everybody is making games for the Switch, but there is definitely some notable absences. So I don't know, we talk about Call of Duty. Does Call of Duty come to Switch in any way? Mm-hmm. I feel like this is speaking to a gigantic investment by Microsoft into all of these properties. And then they look over at Nintendo, who's got, the fastest selling or best selling console since the Wii. And it's well, yeah, probably want to be on there as well. So we've kind of just steamrolled way past exclusivity, gone to PlayStation, go, you're good. And then also this other area of Nintendo that in a lot of ways has been kind of skipped over. So yeah, I think as video game fans, everybody can we can put down our pitchforks and our torches and maybe calm down a little bit, man, which is kind of, I think that's a good thing. How about you?
Yeah, actually one thing that you kind of brought up as far as Call of Duty maybe coming to Switch, this kind of tells me that I think something like Warzone they're going to find a way to make that run
Yeah.
on Switch. Like that's like the perfect platform for a game like that, especially with how well games like Fortnite are doing on that platform. Like
Apex.
it makes so much sense to have like their like big games as service kind of game be on Switch in a lot of ways. At least Activision's one is, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that makes perfect sense. Also, it makes sense as well for other franchises that we know Phil Spencer kind of wants to revive. Stuff like Guitar Hero, for example, if they revisit that, like Switch is going to be a platform they're going to want to have that on, I think. Or if they ever bring back Crash and Spyro, like it would make sense to put those on Switch as well. And I mean, we saw the remakes come to Switch, but like any future iterations, like, yeah, I think like I think they'll put stuff on Switch that makes sense to be on Switch, because obviously they can't do a direct port of, everything that's out there, because obviously the Switch just is so limited in its power that it won't be able to run it, at least until we get, the Switch Pro or whatever the Switch successor is down the road. But at least it sounds like everything that they're doing will be at least on PlayStation, which makes a ton of sense. And I'm glad to see this happen, because I can definitely understand from the point of view of people who don't primarily play on Xbox, who still want to continue to play, Activision Blizzard games, or even maybe this opens the door to some Bethesda stuff as well. Maybe they don't want to lose out on some of their franchises, and maybe it's okay that they go both places. And I love to see that the idea of games just becoming more accessible and being available to as many people as possible rather than gating them off, because it's something that maybe we criticize Sony a lot when it comes to exclusive stuff. Like when they buy the exclusive rights, for example, to something like Final Fantasy 16, like seeing stuff like that kind of bums me out, because I love Final Fantasy and I would love to play that game on Xbox, but it's just one of those things where I have to have a PlayStation 5 to play it, for no other reason other than, Sony got kind of the rights to it. In the same way that, Microsoft has the rights to something like Starfield. So I think this opens the door to more announcements. Maybe even we see like Microsoft first party stuff come to more platforms more often. Maybe that, like Gears 6, for example, maybe that launches on PlayStation in addition to Xbox. Who knows?
I have a curveball for you, Ryan, as I'm wearing the Blue Jays hat and you're wearing the Blue Jays t-shirt. When we talk about xCloud, we typically talk about that in the way of like the subscription service, like that you get it as part of Game Pass. And when we talk about Nintendo, I'm very curious to know if xCloud, it appears on Nintendo Switch, as we've seen cloud version games appear there now, like where you just buy the game. And it's super interesting because like Nintendo basically has paved the way for people who accept, I guess I'll just buy this single game and it's a cloud experience, and people are okay with that. That might be a way for Nintendo to make some of these games, for Xbox to make some of these games work, for Microsoft to make those games work on Switch. So I definitely think that there could be other avenues. It doesn't have to be the same thing just shoved in everywhere. They could get really creative on these things. And also, if it's not necessarily like an xCloud thing, but I also wonder with the purchase of ZeniMax and what Bethesda showed us a long time ago, which was that Orion streaming service or streaming technology that they were creating. Mm-hmm. So I think that might have something to do with it as well when they talk about getting onto other platforms. I just think that we haven't actually quite seen the full demonstration of what they're talking about with streaming games. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, with cloud games coming to Switch, I think those probably aren't going to be able to use the xCloud technology unless they kind of overhaul the entire system. Because from what I know about the cloud games on Switch currently, I think they all go through kind of like Nintendo's cloud streaming service rather than each kind of third party that licenses their games.
There's no way. I feel like there's no way for that to even be possible. Like Nintendo is not that good at that stuff, man.
It's either that or they have an agreement with someone else. Again, I don't know the exact details, but that's just what I've heard from people talking about Nintendo Switch's, cloud streaming service, where essentially they all go through one service, whether it's Hitman or Control or Kingdom Hearts. Like
or it's Resident
not like
Evil.
It's not like Square Enix is streaming that to the Switch. I don't think. I believe that's through one specific server. So I'm interested to see like how like xCloud versions maybe would work into that service, or maybe maybe it has to be its own separate thing outside of the cloud model that Nintendo already has, or maybe that opens the door to maybe the thing we've talked about forever, ever since they announced Game Pass and cloud streaming. Like, what if that means Game Pass eventually comes to Switch in like a cloud streaming form only kind of thing?
Well, that's whenever we talked about Game Pass on Switch, I always thought it was the like what we know as xCloud. That's what you would get. Like you can do it on your browser and on your computer or now on your phones as well. That's what I always assumed they were talking about. But I feel like that's just what we've known. The alternative is individual games. And especially when we talk about things like what they just acquired from Activision and Blizzard, that other games that haven't necessarily been on Switch. Like what about like Hearthstone?
Yeah.
Like Hearthstone on Switch would be awesome. Yeah. That'd be great.
In fact, I'm kind of surprised Hearthstone's never come to like any consoles besides mobile phones at this point. Like it's so
touch heavy, which I think that's why I think of Switch. Like it's got to be there.
Yeah. Well, you say that, but we just got that Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duels game, which is essentially like Hearthstone, but it's just Yu-Gi-Oh! And it has like the same interface and everything as Hearthstone does.
Of course. So, it's not like it's impossible to have that style game.
But I think like developers have gotten better anyways at like doing that type of game outside of touch controls. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So, I think there's a bunch of doors open with this. And yeah, again, from what just reading the whole article itself, it just really sounds like Microsoft just wants to put their stuff everywhere at this point. So I think the doors are open for anything Microsoft related to appear on any platform at this point. I think that's kind of what the direction that, the Microsoft president, feels like they want to kind of go in with this. So either way, interesting article that I was not expecting would come out this morning. But I'm glad that they came out in front of the deal and at least gave like a definitive answer to people. And I think part of this kind of factors into something I know people have been talking about, where the FTC is kind of overviewing the deal. We obviously knew though that, the FTC was going to get involved with it anyways. Like that's not really a news story, but I think an article like this plays into that in a way, like how the FTC kind of views the Microsoft deal, where if Microsoft is pledging to put, the Activision Blizzard stuff on everything, it's more likely probably that the deal goes through than if they didn't do something like this. Yeah. Okay. So next news story is one that I thought was kind of weird. I know a lot of people are excited about this one, but I have things to say about it. In an interview with IGN Japan, Scalebound creator Hideki Kamiya reiterated his interest in resuming development of Scalebound. Quote, "I'd like to appeal to Phil Spencer directly. Let's do it, Phil." He seemed very excited about this. He really wants Scalebound to come back, and I'm the type of person that's going to ruin people's days, unfortunately, because I actually don't hope that Scalebound comes back, honestly. Like, I feel like it don't get me wrong, the idea of like having this, like these like people rocking out with their headphones while riding dragons sounds like a neat idea. But there was nothing about what they showed for Scalebound that really ever got me excited to ever play that game. And I feel like they wouldn't have canceled that game if the game was, coming along or felt like it was a game that was eventually going to be fun to play. But what do you think about this news story, Sean?
I want to be short with my opinion on Scalebound. I agree 1,000% with everything that you just said. Nothing they showed was really all that great. And when I remember, everybody was making fun of it. And it was in a time where maybe just everybody was making fun of everything about Xbox, and that just sort of like fell into that category. But I feel like Scalebound isn't really all that noteworthy, other than the fact that it got canceled. And that's now the cult following has kind of arisen out of that. So I think that's what I have to say about Scalebound itself. What I want to talk about is this approach, and I think it's disgusting. I think he even says, "I want to appeal directly to Phil Spencer." You pick up the phone. You send an email. You don't go in public, "Hey, let's get back together and let's work on this." I think it's gross. And I don't like this approach at all. And there's a bunch of other news happening with Platinum as well that I don't know if we're covering today, but I don't like this public putting weird pressure on Phil or on Xbox. And because now they're like, we want to do it, but if it's not happening, it's because of these guys. I'm sorry. You were the team that didn't hit your milestones, that were creating a game that wasn't really coming along. And I feel like it's just like any other breakup. If it's over, it's over, and we're never getting back together again. Never, 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 never. Taylor Swift. Yeah, I think it's just the safest thing would be for them to just move on, both of them, but whether it's Kamiya-san or Microsoft. And I agree 1,000% definitely with what you just said. This is the type of thing where you kind of leave for the back room where, again, he calls up Phil Spencer on the phone and talks to him about this rather than, putting him on blast in an interview with, IGN Japan or something like that. So definitely. Because now what is he going to, he has two choices. He either ignores it or publicly says like, I heard you, we're not going to do it. Like, it's just so awkward and it feels juvenile. I don't like it. It feels desperate as well. So I think it's nasty. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm being like super negative already. So that might be it for me.
There's definitely hurt feelings from us in the Xbox community about Scalebound. So let's move on and talk about more positive stuff, starting with, well, I don't know how positive this is, at least a release date for the announced version of Xbox Series X and S versions of Grand Theft Auto 5. There was basically an article put up on Rockstar's website talking about this. So the collection is out on, or the new version's out on March 15th. But the most interesting part of this blog post was that they officially have confirmed Grand Theft Auto 6 is happening. It's a real game. It's well under development, they said, and we should be hearing about it when it's ready for them to talk about. I mean, we obviously knew they were going to work on Grand Theft Auto 6 eventually. I mean, it's been, almost 10 years since Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, since they've had another Grand Theft Auto game. So I'm just happy they're finally ready to move on from Grand Theft Auto 5. Sean, what do you think about this news?
Well, part of the quote, I think, in there is something about every time they work on a Grand Theft Auto, they really want to move the genre or even the gaming industry forward. And I believe them 1,000%. They have every resource available to them, and the creative. Well, they have the resources available to them. The creative or the talent, I think, is a little bit different now over on that team. And just the landscape for who is buying games and what kind of attitude do they have towards something that can really be pretty prickly, I would say. And I'll be interested to see that because the voices, I think, in gaming are older. And I'm sure, or if they're not older, they kind of sound older. Like even the 20-year-olds are kind of like, you shouldn't be saying that. And I'm like, that's amazing to me because when we were, 15 to 25 years old, we were very like extreme and everything can just be like nasty. And sure, there's some gross stuff with this game or some things that are a little mature. We used to call mature. Now that's just like completely, cancelable. Yeah. I'm really curious on where they go here. Like what kind of audience would they target with a game like Grand Theft Auto? But that is all to say that it's not like there's no audience because the game continues to sell gazillion copies. So somebody is there buying it, but it's not new. And people, I guess, have just kind of accepted that Grand Theft Auto contains material and themes and actions that are really, really nasty. And it should be the type of thing that fires up this crowd who's kind of calling out a bunch of other stuff. And it's kind of mind-boggling. I don't know how to wrap my mind around this.
Or they don't play Grand Theft Auto, which is bizarre to me that's not the case. But yeah, it's just,
I guess
that's why. But I think they always like to push the boundaries of what they can push whenever a game releases. So I imagine this next one is going to probably try and push the boundaries of what's kind of acceptable to talk about in 2024 or 2025, whenever this comes out. But yeah, talking about something else as far as the direction of the game, I'm really interested to see where they go in the direction of this with what happened with Red Dead 2 and how they really went in like a completely different direction with that game, where you had to worry about all kinds of like real life stuff that I never thought I'd have to manage in a video game, or like the idea of like trudging through the snow and it just taking forever to get anywhere in that game. Like stuff like that. I'm interested to know like how close they try and make this next one to reality, or where they go with the direction of the game and how that direction has changed between, the last game and this one, essentially.
I think the reality is more like when I think about Red Dead Redemption and the reality element of it, it's like you tend to your horse, you tend to your things. It's very like careful care of your possessions and the people around you. So everything was just magnified and longer. Takes you longer to get on the horse. You've got to make sure you load up your weapon on the side and whatever. I think for Grand Theft Auto, it's like gameplay and population density are the things that kind of like come to mind for me. So I wonder if that's where this GTA Online thing kind of merges into almost like an MMO style thing. Like, what if a city is populated instead of like realistic type of people walking down the street? It's just like everybody, and maybe that's where they take this thing. Maybe just an AI just randomly picks up random people's faces from the internet and just plasters them onto models, and then you see real people that walking down the street. Or like, what if they did something with your friends list where like I'm walking down the street and I see like an NPC version of Sean walking down the street, with his. Oh, that's interesting. That's not what I was picturing when you first started saying that. I'm thinking like we're in Liberty City and it's almost like agents from the Matrix. Yeah. Where it is an AI and they're all of a sudden like, and then it's me. Yeah. And I just take that person's spot in that city. That would be amazing, Sean. Yeah, I'm a bummed, taking a nap on the side of the road with my newspapers, and then all of a sudden, here I am.
Watch out, we have
a
fight in a train station.
Yeah, dodge this.
My God. Anyways, we should move on. I got one news story I want us to cover before we move on to question, and that is the Nintendo Direct just happened from
Yes.
when we started recording, and we got two really quick news stories from the Nintendo Direct that are coming to Xbox, which is exciting, and they're both like older collections. Starting off with the Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers Edition coming to Xbox One on April 7th. This is one that I'm very excited about. Chrono Cross is actually one of my favorite all-time games. So seeing it get kind of the HD treatment on modern consoles with some interesting new features, like a new soundtrack as well as some other stuff. Plus, they included the Satellaview version of Radical Dreamers, which is kind of this like prologue to Chrono Cross, which essentially happened on the Super Famicom network system. It was the same thing that had that like weird like Legend of Zelda game that was only available in Japan, that was based off like the time of day in Japan, like different events would happen. So it's awesome to see that. I'm very excited for Chrono Cross. It was also one of the only predictions I got correct from the Nintendo Direct. And then the other one, which I'm excited about, Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Series Collection is coming to Xbox One and Series X and S on July 8th. Those are two really fun platforming games. So we've got the original PS1 Klonoa game, as well as the one that came out on the Wii. Those games are a lot of fun, and they're like 2D platformers, and I'm excited to play those again on Xbox One and Series X. So there you go. Those are the only two games we got from the Nintendo Switch, at least confirmed at the time of recording. There's stuff like Live Alive, for example, that we don't have exact platforms for it, but that's one that might come to Xbox at some point, as well as some other stuff. So, but those were the only two confirmed things before we started recording. So I wanted to
look at Nintendo, 40 minutes of Direct and it's all exclusives. How about you put some stuff on some other platforms over there, Nintendo, you monopolistic son of a gun?
Exactly.
I'm just kidding. That was kidding voice, by the way, audience.
I was actually just amazed how many Xbox things we were getting in that's Nintendo Direct.
That's what I'm saying.
So
that's what I'm saying, man. They're just hoarding, and everybody else is like, hey, Monopoly, Xbox, Microsoft, and Nintendo's like, come buy our games for $10 more in physical. It's fine.
That's how we do it. Also, real quick to throw it in there, Wolf Among Us 2 got a re-reveal trailer. It's coming to Xbox One and Series X in 2023. So there's that as well. We don't have a lot to say.
Go read the comics, dude. You probably have. Read Fables. Like it's really good. It gives people time to go play the other Wolf Among Us. Excellent game.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Sean, let's let some of our friends into the car with us. It is time for the carpool. So folks at home, if you'd like to have your questions read on the carpool, you can of course leave your question in the comments of this YouTube video and we'll answer it on the show. Or we put up a questions post on Twitter at Yumi Capri's or on the Discord. The Yumi Capri Discord. It's free to join. Links in the show notes. So join us there. Just like Court Lalonde at Court Lalonde did on Twitter. And he asked the question, is there a Sony franchise that you think would be more successful on Xbox or vice versa? So Sean, is there a franchise from Sony that you think would work better on Xbox than on PlayStation?
First of all, I want to take a step back. The carpool thing, we might have to change this thing up again because I had a bit of a thought, Ryan.
Oh.
And I know I'm going to terrify you with this. The carpool, when you say jump in the car with us, I'm wondering, carpool is very professional. Like we're going to work, like we'll save on gas. But I'm starting to think like maybe the Xbox Drive, the official vehicle, is like a van with painted windows, and we roll up to Court Lalonde with some candies and kittens and go, hey, handsome man, come on into the van and we'll talk about video games.
Jesus, Sean.
Come on in, Court. The water's warm, my friend. Is there a Sony franchise that would be more successful on Xbox? I feel like this happens a lot actually in Xbox land. You've got your pretty standards that like Halo like is successful on Xbox. There's really no transplanting that, I don't think. Gears, same thing. Forza, same thing. And it's not necessarily like a homegrown type of franchise, but I can't help but think like a game like Ori would just do phenomenally well pretty much anywhere else actually. Like there's a small crowd I think in Xbox land that really appreciate that game, but Ori was the one that came up first and foremost for me as a game that others would really, really start to appreciate for its art style and its gameplay and the themes. Like I feel like that's people play PlayStation games when they want to cry their balls out, they eyeballs out. That's what I meant. So I think that's the first thing to come to mind. So I'll go in that direction first. But what about you, man?
Yeah, honestly, Ori is a really good one. The one I would have said if we didn't get it on PlayStation already was Cuphead. I think would have been another example of one that I think would have done better on PlayStation versus Xbox. Like any of the smaller
Quantum Break
indie stuff that's exclusive to Xbox. Well, no, I don't think Quantum Break would have succeeded anywhere, Sean. Regardless,
Quantum Break would actually. I replaced my answer. Quantum Break is my answer. That would have done awesome on Sony. Honestly, I feel like it would have been right there alongside all the Quantum Break stuff, which is kind of odd. Not Quantum Break, the Quantic Dream. Yeah, like Detroit and all those things. I think it would have been. I think Sony people would have loved that. And it's so weird because they were the ones like really hashing it down because it was on Xbox. I don't want to watch TV. I'm sorry. How long is the cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 4? You know, 45 minutes to finish the damn game. So knock it off.
Well, I was going to say, clearly you've never watched any Persona 5 cutscenes, Sean, where some of them are like 2 hours long.
Take your pick. Like that's exactly what I mean. That's why I think I'm not just like picking a game that kind of failed on Xbox and would do better there. Like I really do think that there are elements of Quantum Break that people would have liked over there. Yeah.
And to be fair, I really like that game. So it's actually a really good choice. And yeah, as for me, like, honestly, I think it like, I might have even said something like Psychonauts, but we got it Psychonauts on PlayStation. I don't think it really did better than it did on Xbox. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a tough question. I think a lot of the games that I would have normally said in the past have already gone there. Maybe something like State of Decay might do better on PlayStation. Actually, I think like there's more of that like survival crowd who like zombie games on PlayStation, maybe than on Xbox. So maybe that's one that I think might actually do better. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a tough question. But kind of on the reverse foot, is there like a franchise on PlayStation that would probably do better on Xbox? Because I don't know about that either. But what do you think, Sean?
Mag. What about Mag? How is that not the first thing that comes to your mind first? Massive action game.
I was thinking things that have been relevant since, the year 2010, Sean, but sure. Let's go with Mag. Let's go with Mag.
Oh, you want recent games. I see what you're saying. This is, and the way I'm kind of reading this is because he says you would be more successful on Xbox or vice versa. So a lot of Sony games have been successful. Yeah. And one game that is a different measure is Days Gone. That the perception of it is that it's not a good game, but it's sold like crazy, and it's not a bad game by any measure. I think it's just very good. And when you think about like a Metacritic stage, like the PlayStation 4 generation, if you're just thinking about recency stuff, like they hit it with like everything, man. It's hard to imagine any of those doing any better on Xbox. Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us 1 or 2, the Uncharted 4, like those, there's no way they do better on Xbox for any reason, really. So yeah, I think I do go back to kind of like something like Mag or I don't know, like Warhawk even, or Heavenly Sword, maybe like some of the PS3 games.
Or I will say even like something like Killzone Shadowfall, which came out on like the PlayStation 4's like launch period. I think that would have actually probably done better on Xbox because it's a first person shooter. And I think those first person shooters just do better on Xbox naturally, I think.
I'd argue a lot of Housemarque stuff, actually. I think Resogun did fairly well, and I think that's mainly because of its timing, that it was like one of the only games you could get, and it was a PlayStation Plus game. But I think Nex Machina was really good, and there was there's another one, I'm forgetting what the name of it was, but there's two there, Nex Machina, and there was another one that were really, I think, because Housemarque is like arcadey style games. I think that would have lined up really nicely with Xbox. But is there anything like, let's look at it this way, is there anything that could have been like maybe used the power of the cloud or anything a little bit better from PlayStation land over in Xbox?
Well, actually, the one game I might say is Days Gone, because maybe they could use that to help populate some of the freaker crowds anyways, to increase the number of freakers that you have to deal with. God, that name still just kills me every time I say it.
I know.
That's really the only one I can kind of think of, at least from modern games. Otherwise, we have to go back to something like Mag, where you would have, where you'd actually be able to take advantage of like higher player counts with 256 actual players in like one environment without any loading. I think might be the different thing.
Yeah, it's funny because like I think that's why things hit so well in PlayStation, because like you have a game like Persona 4 or 5 that are exclusive over there, not even first party stuff, but it's like they line up so well. People expect that type of game on PlayStation. You could put that over an Xbox and I don't think it would do better.
No,
actually.
Well, even we saw that with something like Tales of Arise, where I think we looked at the sales numbers after it was all said and done, and it was like 80-20 in favor of sales on PlayStation.
Yep.
So like,
Metal Gear doesn't do any better on Xbox unless you take it like right from the beginning. Unless the very first one comes out on like the original Xbox, and you're gonna have to do some time travel to make all that work. But a lot of it has to do with legacy. Where did the game, like, where did that series or the developers, like, where did it all start? And that's just something that it's hard for me to separate when answering this type of question, which I think is like, I think this is an absolutely stellar question. I would love people to go onto the YouTube channel. I saw Joey Splats really excited about this, and I'm curious to know what you guys think about this as well. What game would do better if they were swapped on the platforms?
For sure. Well, speaking of Court Lalonde, Sean, we got another question, but this one from Xbox A at Xbox A. So maybe it's Court, maybe it's Matt. It's one of the two of them probably. They asked the question, do you prefer Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi? So I personally think that Diet Pepsi is a vile substance that is not, fit for human consumption. And yes, I know, Sean, you're already freaking out because I know you like Diet Pepsi.
You're doing it on purpose.
It has nothing to do with you. I hate Diet Pepsi.
Oh, wow.
But I mean,
you sounded like Hook there. I hate.
But
Pizza
also,
Pan.
if you were to ask me what I prefer between Coke and Pepsi, it's always going to be Coke. So it's just one of those things where it just makes more sense for Diet Coke to be the superior brand to Diet Pepsi, to me personally. But Sean, how do you respond to this question?
Well, I feel personally attacked. I feel like you did it on purpose. I think you know exactly. Yeah, see, there you go. I don't know what I did to you. My answer is complicated. In a can, I'm going to go for Diet Pepsi. In a bottle, probably Diet Pepsi as well. If I'm going to go to McDonald's, the only option is Diet Coke. But Diet Coke from McDonald's, any drink really from McDonald's, is the best version of that drink. Okay. So that's why when I go to McDonald's, which I often do, which is, it's in my hand right now. And yes, I see Greg Miller getting a Letterman's jacket or whatever it's called. I see you, Greg Miller. And yeah, sure, you've got 1 million followers and sure, you're good at eating chicken wings. Well, guess what? McDonald's doesn't even have chicken wings, Greg Miller.
Did. In fact, I remember Greg Miller did a review of McDonald's chicken wings back in the day.
Am I ruining my chance with McDonald's right now?
You kind of are a little bit, Sean.
Am I scale bounding it right now?
You are a little bit, but to be fair, the McDonald's wings were real bad. So there's that.
Not like the pizza. The pizza at McDonald's was stellar.
Well,
they really should bring that back. Bring back that and bring back Crystal Pepsi.
My God.
Pepsi Clear, whatever it's called.
Moving on.
So complicated.
Pepsi's
better. Pepsi, no, hang on a second. You said Diet Pepsi's a vile substance? Are you kidding me? It's very sweet. I love me some Diet Pepsi.
Well, we all know that Ryan Turford has trash taste with a lot of stuff, so it's all good.
I refute your vileness, Ryan.
Anyways, moving on. The Muffin Mon on Discord asked the question.
So good.
Do you feel like this is going to be a quiet first half of the year for Xbox? PlayStation and Nintendo have lots of big releases this month and March and after the Nintendo Direct in April as well. But Xbox seems awfully quiet. Yes, they have Game Pass, but is this a concern? I think we actually talked about this when we talked about our predictions for the year and kind of how we thought that the first half of the year for Xbox is going to be. And I actually think it's going to be a very quiet year, or at least for the first half of the year for Microsoft. I think it's going to be like last year, where we're going to see a lot of stuff loaded at the end of the year. That's when we're going to see, the bigger games from Microsoft coming out, this fall. But Sean, do you disagree at all?
How can I? And actually the way that the question is phrased and the timing of it right after this Nintendo Direct, where I just cannot believe the cadence of games on Nintendo. And I'm trying to do some sort of like quick comparison over an Xbox, and it's like, it's not even close.
Yep.
And I'm never, we face this question, I would say, a lot over the years of doing the Xbox Drive. We've been doing this a lot, and especially there were more dire years than we're facing right now. It's definitely been worse before, but that's not to say that this year is all that great either. And I think so that's all to say that I don't really get concerned, because personally I have a Switch, and personally I have other things that I can play. I've got a gigantic backlog of games that I haven't gotten to. There's a tremendous amount of games that I'm really excited to get to. So I don't have to play the latest, greatest thing. So I think maybe many of us can chillax a little bit on that. You're not really there, I don't think. You don't really maintain a backlog. So I feel like you actually might be more impacted by a bit of a dry or drought spell here.
Yeah, but there's always new stuff for me to play. And again, it's just one of those things where I admittedly am not going to have a lot of Xbox time over the next couple months. I think, at least if things stand the way that they are now, third party stuff I'm going to pick up on Xbox, but there's a lot of stuff that's going to be
Dying Light I
exclusive.
want to pick up.
Yeah. Like there's a lot
Crossfire X I'm very interested in. It's like very, very soon.
Yeah, it's
like,
actually tomorrow. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is some stuff on Xbox to be excited about, but it's just one of those things where like my PlayStation and Switch are probably going to get much more use over the next couple months, I think, before, you know, stuff like Redfall comes out and some other games that are coming out from Microsoft.
Dude, what are we talking? I take back everything I just said. Okay. Dying Light, I want to pick up. I want to get, what the heck did we literally just said it. Crossfire X, I want to try out. It'll be on Game Pass. Elden Ring is out at the end of the month. That's enough for February. You know, there's lots coming out. There's tons.
Yeah.
It's fine. Shadow Warrior 3 looks pretty sweet. Triangle Strategy. Oh, that's Switch.
Yeah. My God. But
there's enough. It's going to be okay.
Exactly. I mean, and to me, if I'm mostly like talking about me personally. I don't care about Dying Light or Elden Ring. I'm not going to play those games.
What about Tunic?
No, I'm not going to play that game either.
What about Tiny Tina's Wonderland?
No, I'm not playing that either. Yeah, that's what I mean. A lot of these games are like are kind of bigger, but third-party releases that I'm just not going to play. So
Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga is April 5th. Ryan, is that the next one?
I was going to say that's probably the next one for me. I'm excited.
Yikes! Okay.
All right.
Shout out to GameInformer.com/2022. That's where I'm getting my list from.
I mean, it was either that or the You Being Capri spreadsheet of, you know, dates that I wrote. All right. Next up, TPR on the Discord asks, in light of Halo Infinite multiplayer counts dropping relatively substantially, what should 343 do to ingest new life into the game before co-op and Forge release? Or should they leave things be and just focus on tweaking their progression systems as they have? To be honest, I know that's been a kind of a talk on the town on Twitter as far as, you know, lower play counts for Halo. And honestly, I think they just need to stick to their guns and just keep improving the experience as is until they're ready to add that new content. I don't think there's like a quick fix for it, but I think more people will come back, A, when the co-op comes in, and B, when there's more modes and maps for the multiplayer. Because I think people are just moving away from it because they've pretty much seen everything that they can see with Halo Infinite multiplayer at this point. Obviously not us, because we're still doing Halo Saturdays, Sean.
Halo Saturdays.
And it's probably not going to. This probably not going to stop until, you know, Wii Sports coming to Switch comes out,
and we have Battle Royale, man.
And we have bowling Saturdays over on the channel. But beyond that, I don't see that really changing anytime soon for us. Beyond. But I think for a lot of average consumers, I personally would rather them see 343 kind of work on the smaller things that they need to fix first, and then address this stuff, because I don't think it's at the point where they need to add something right now to get players back in. But what do you think, Sean?
I totally agree with you, Ryan. There's fundamentals there that still need kind of tweaking and fixing and bringing up to speed. I completely agree. But I do think that there's more that can be done, but probably in like a year or two thing. And I was about to I said it about bowling, but like Battle Royale, like throw us a little Battle Royale there. I also wonder if there's going to be any sort of like meta to this at all. I really think about like how Destiny continues to bring people back in with actually with paid content, which is incredible. But then also like Fortnite, really, like people poo-poo on Fortnite. Maybe they don't give it the credit that is deserved, but like they made events happen. Mm-hmm. They made these things that like you either have to be in the game for, or that transcended the video game industry into the mainstream. I think that's where Halo needs to be. Like that's where they need to set their sights, is how do they, you can't just have a launch and then like hope that people play the game forever. There has to be some sort of like thing that draws people attention away from where they currently are and over into Halo. So that needs to be a thing that they need to do after they do the fundamental stuff. And the other piece that maybe is related to both is, you and I talked about this before Halo Infinite even launched, and I said if they roll out like the seasons, they just kind of like they go from one to the next, like what Gears has done, it's not going to work. And I'm kind of seeing, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of a similar approach in some ways. Of course, battle passes in Halo don't expire, and that's cool, but it's like, that's it? You're just going to like roll through some items that you're going to get in this thing. I don't know. It's not enough for me. And I feel like sometimes I'll say I'm not part of that audience, but I do think I am for Halo. I think I'm there. I'm interested in it. And I think they need to keep people like me, like Joel Brooks and Tony Baker. Like there are models out there that are better, and they can improve upon what they've got right now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next up, Seamus McIsaac at Famous Seamus asked the question, what was your favorite joke achievement? Like one of those ones that says one of the press start achievements, or doing something dumb in a game. And honestly, Seamus, I don't really have an answer for you because I couldn't think of one off the top of my head. I even like when I saw this question come in before we started recording the show, I did a bunch of research to try and find one that I could think of from a game that I played. I couldn't think of any. So I'm kind of stumped. Sean, do you have anything to say about this one?
Far Cry had a really cool thing, a couple of Far Cry games, and where you could actually roll credits if you just stayed still for a little while. The game would start and you would just kind of like don't move at all, and then it would actually like you beat the game. They'd like free you or something, or you'd find a way out of the situation. So I don't know if you actually got an achievement from that, but I would maybe count that in this conversation. And related to not moving, I'm going to jump into PlayStation land here if I can.
Of course.
Hopefully you don't get the same question on the PlayStation Drive as well for trophies.
If not, I'll just steal your answer.
Uncharted 4 had one of the greatest inside joke Easter egg trophies ever, which was, if you remember when they demoed that game at E3, whatever year that was, there was some sort of glitch. I think the controller disconnected or something. And they were like, here we go. We're ready to show you gameplay. And Nathan Drake was just kind of standing there and they're like, go now, go. And he just waited. So if you played the game, eventually when the game came out, you played it and you got to that same part. If you just didn't touch anything, if you didn't move them, you got I think it was called stage fright. Was the trophy. And that's legendary, dude. Cause like if you're in video games, you're the only ones who get it. If you didn't see it, then you're like, why would this be a trophy? Like, why would they even like think to put that in there? But yeah, that's the one that came to mind for me, was actually a PlayStation example.
Okay. That's a really good example, Sean. I'll give you that one. All right. Last question comes to us from Mike at BlazeKnight0923, who asks, which Xbox first-party franchises, current or future, including the Activision Blizzard stuff, could successfully join Halo on the television/movie scene? My picks would be The Outer Worlds and Hellblade, personally. So I'll start it off, since you just went there with the trophies. I'm going to say Psychonauts, I think, would be like a really cool animated show.
One.
Especially because the voice of Raz, the guy who does the voice acting for that character, he not only does an amazing job with Raz, but he's also like a really like proficient voice actor on a bunch of different like animated TV shows. And I think like that's the type of show that would be like a really fun like kid, like they could either make it like a kids or a teen kind of like really fun like animated show. I think that would be really cool. So that's kind of my answer, but something I've wanted for years, ever since, World of Warcraft became a thing, is a World of Warcraft animated show. Maybe even like when I saw Arcane, the League of Legends show, like I would love to see like a World of Warcraft, or even just a Warcraft TV show like Arcane. I think would be really awesome. Yeah. But Sean, what do you think about this?
Dude, like all of them, honestly. Like I love your example of Psychonauts. I think especially for like a teen kind of audience it's the message. Anybody who plays Psychonauts 2 especially, the messaging in that is so great. The writing is amazing. We've got to get more of that. And I know, did we talk? I guess we kind of talked about Bungie. Did we talk about Bungie last week? Yeah, already that they got bought by Sony. Like this notion that Sony can kind of proliferate the Destiny world through their movie studios and their production and everything is awesome. And it's going to be interesting to see what Microsoft does with Halo and the studio that they've selected there. It's just not as like baked in. It's always going to be partnering with somebody else. Psychonauts is a great example. I have a huge like swelling of my heart for StarCraft, which I think people are going to hate me for this. I think the StarCraft lore is more interesting than Halo. I'm just going to say that. I would love to, when the question first came in, I was like, what if they merge? Like, let's let the Zerg wipe out the Flood and then just like take over from there. And then we can really start to have a conversation. But there's tremendous storytelling in all of the Blizzard stuff. Yeah. Really. Even Overwatch could have like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Especially after like the Overwatch shorts that we got and like how awesome those were. Yeah, I agree with you. That would be awesome to see.
That's the thing. And that's the difference maker, I think, for Blizzard. And it always has been, is like those worlds seem like they existed before the game did. And it's the same with BioWare. I've said the same thing about BioWare games. But yeah, like I would love all of those things. Every single one, man. Definitely.
Yeah. All right, Sean, we got to go. But before we go, Sean plugs go.
I feel like we could do an hour on that last question. Probably. And actually like go on about maybe at another time. Maybe that'll be the extra mile that we don't do next time. Wink. You can find me on Twitter and on Twitch at Sean Capri, Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. And if you want your picture, maybe even an NFT of Ryan Turford riding a moose with a reference to Canadian mounted Royal Canadian Police, Patreon.com/Yumi Capri.
Man, why'd you have to bring NFTs into this? As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You can find us on Twitter at Yumi Capri's, on YouTube at youtube.com/Yumi Capri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Sean Capri, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 226 of the Xbox Drive, and we out. Bye.
Get into your time machine and fast forward to 2027 when the show is available by NFT only. Bye. The Xbox Drive is fueled by patrons at patreon.com/YumiCapri. And from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful to the more than 70 patrons who support us each and every month, with a special thanks to our Capremium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team. You can join me and the rest of the Phoenix Overdrive team at extra-life.org and raise money for the kids. And Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on this show and the Nintendo Drive. You can download his latest album, In My Element, on Spotify and Apple Music. Our platinum producers, Robbie Bobby Miller and Trucker Sloth, and all of our gold members, Argo, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Dano, Emily O'Kelly, Foolish Fuji, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Marcus O'Neill, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, RJ Kern, Skinny Matt, Tony Baker, and Xavier Reyes. If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/YumiCapri and choose the tier that works for you.